Yo, I'm Bob. Into Star Wars. Happened to be totally blind since birth. Talking about Episode 6 of Ahsoka on Disney Plus. Spoilers ahead. Watch the episode if you don't want to get spoiled. However, if you don't mind a spoilery filled review slash recap, come right along. That being said, jumping right in, and you were warned. Episode 6 is entitled Far, Far Away. And when we get the opening scene with Ahsoka and Hu Yang, we get them discussing Sabine's choices. And they come to the conclusion that she made the best choice that she could when searching for Ezra. So Hu Yang mentions that he's got archives filled with stories. And the way he starts with the a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away bit right before the main title comes up, I thought we were going to be diverted from the distant galaxy story. We were going to be going into the past for just a few seconds. I was thinking this. I had mixed feelings about it. I didn't really want to see it. I wanted to stick with Sabine and finally find out where Ezra was. And thankfully, after Far, Far Away popped up on screen, that's exactly where we went. We were aboard the Eye of Sion with Sabine, Morgan Elsbeth, Balin, and Shin, and their creepy navigator droids. So now I would love to see a live action show or read a book series from Hu Yang's perspective to delve into his archives to see what all he's lived through, what all he's gotten to see, what all he's gotten to experience. Because this guy, as I've said in other videos, has so much knowledge when it comes to the Old Republic. And for me, I think it's one of my favorite eras of Star Wars. I'd love to see more of that. He's such a cool droid. But yeah, in the episode, we are right there in the thick of it with Sabine, and they are headed to Peridia. We find out that it is the ancient homeworld of the ancestors of the Dathomiri. And what an awesome location this planet is. I like that it is a Purgil graveyard. This is where Purgil come to die. It's very eerie, very Night Sister centric. I love that this is their haunt. I like the atmosphere of the planet quite a bit. So if you've read the expanded universe novel Courtship of Princess Leia, on Dathomir I think there's probably more than one stone fortress for the Night Sisters in that novel. So when we got to see, I wouldn't call it a similar fortress because I wouldn't know what the artwork looked like. Well, I really got taken back to the days in which I had nothing but abridged audiobooks to listen to. And it was awesome that we get to see, I would say, somewhat similar Night Sister digs in episode 6 of Ahsoka. I like the way that the three great mothers were introduced. When we land on the planet with Balin and Shin, when they emerge from the shuttle with Morgan, we're introduced to Lachesis, Clotho, and Atropos. It's not Atropos, but yeah, they are very similar to our fates from Greek mythology. Now, I wish the credits had been narrated because I do believe they list the actresses who play the Great Mothers and they list the names of these Night Sisters. But for some reason this season, when it comes to the audio description tracks, the credits aren't narrated. So I had to find this out on the day after I watched Ahsoka. I watched it on the day it premiered, but, the very next day, on which I'm filming this video, yeah, that's when I found out their names, and I made the connection to our very own fates from Greek mythology. Of course, these great mothers are much more evil, I would like to imagine, than our fates in Greek mythology. But I like that they gave them a very similar sounding names. Well, I think Clotho and Lachesis, they're actual names of two of the fates from Greek mythology. I loved seeing the Night Sisters in live action, and I'm sure their outfits look fantastic. The voices, to me, sound exactly like Night Sisters from Clone Wars. They've got that cool, creepy dual voice effect going on, that otherworldly voice effect there. I love that scene, especially when they start sniffing the air, and that is quite creepy. They remind me of witches from fairy tales. I think there was a blind witch in the Disney show Once Upon a Time, and she would pull that stuff. So I thought of that, although these witches can see very well. Just a really awesome scene in which we get to see our live action Night Sisters. And I hope we get to see them making it off of Peridia and getting to head to the Star Wars galaxy as we know it. Baylan and Shin in this episode, I like that they spend a little bit of time talking about the old Jedi Order. And Baylan, at one point, he mentions how it's always the same thing, this vicious cycle, as it were. You know, you have powers rising and falling, and you've got the, how does he say it? You've got the fall of the Empire, rise of the Jedi, fall of the Empire, rise of the Jedi, and it just keeps repeating itself over and over and over again. And he seeks to find the beginning. He feels something here on Peridia. And the Night Sisters, they fear, or he believes they fear a power greater than their own. And when he mentioned breaking the cycle, this is probably not going to happen in live action, but I am reminded of Fate of the Jedi, a novel series in which we get to meet Abeloth, a very terrifying villain. In Legends, she's actually the mother. She was in league with the son and the daughter. She drank of the font of power, I believe, and she bathed in the pool of knowledge, and she became corruptible. She became corrupt. She was a being of chaos, and every 1,000 years she would create an apocalypse. And I love that series, by the way. I'm really wanting to reread or re-listen to Fate of the Jedi since the episode aired. But I don't think we're going to see Abeloth, but when Baylan mentioned breaking the cycle, starting everything over again, or, you know, somehow breaking it, I couldn't help but thinking of the Abeloth. Since October's coming up, she is a very terrifying villain, got tentacles flying around, just a really Lovecraftian Star Wars expanded universe villain. I loved her in the Fate of the Jedi books rather. Sorry, I've only got 5 hours of sleep, and I'm trying to do this video the day the Ahsoka episode aired. So, so at one point in the episode, Baylan is talking about Ezra, and he refers to Ezra and those like Ezra as Boken Jedi. They were trained in the wild outside the temple after Order 66. And when I watched the episode for the first time, I thought he said broken Jedi. So when I watched it, I think it was the second time, I got that he had said Boken. And of course, I'm thinking of the Boken sabers, those wooden sabers. I feel like that was an insult toward Jedi like Ezra, because Boken sabers are just practice sabers. They're training sabers. It doesn't take anything to smash them. You know, so I couldn't help thinking that might have been a bit of an insult toward Ezra and the way he was trained. I don't think Baylan sees him as much of a threat there. I like getting to spend a bit of time with Baylan and Shin in this episode. I missed them in the last episode, so it was interesting getting to just have them talking about the Order, and we get a little bit more of a glimpse into what Baylan is possibly wanting to do. So, I mean, even though we didn't really get to see them in action, I like that bit of character development that we got in this episode. Okay, the biggest scene of the episode for me, anyway, I don't know, I think there are two scenes that tie for me, but when we see the Star Destroyer Chimera show up, and it pretty much docks with the tower there at the Fortress of the Night Sisters. I love that scene because you get Thrawn's theme beginning to play. You start seeing the Night Troopers and they start chanting his name. Just a fantastic way to introduce Thrawn in live action. And I was so thrilled to find out quite a while back, I mean, we all found out a while back, that Lars Mikkelsen was actually going to be playing Grand Admiral Thrawn in live action. So the voice sounds exactly the same from Rebels. He's got that very calm, collected, cool tone that Thrawn is known for. And it was just awesome to get to see all this stuff in live action. I immediately started thinking, I wish Hasbro would make that when the Night Troopers showed up, when Enoch showed up. He's got that gold faceplate. So, I mean, I can easily imagine a Night Trooper 4-pack with a Captain Enoch in there. Just really cool action figures. I think they'd make fantastic action figures because they've got that red cloth here and there on their armor as well. I would imagine they look really cool in action figure form. We're already getting Thrawn, so I mean, that's covered. And Thrawn just cannot help mocking Baylan and Shin. He really doesn't see much of a use for them. Throughout the episode, he's just kind of making these little barbs at Baylan and Shin. He calls Baylan flawed at one point. He's like, oh, yeah, you guys, didn't tell me that Ahsoka was still alive. He actually puts Morgan in her place at one point too. He's like, oh yeah, I'm guessing Ahsoka's probably still around, and who are we going to be blaming for that? That kind of thing. God, I love seeing him in live action. One of my favorite scenes in the episode right there. So the Howler in this episode, when we were first introduced to them, I thought they were actually Vonskers. We get to see them in Zahn's Thrawn trilogy in the expanded universe, but I'm sure there's something entirely different. The audio description track mentioned a crocodilian snout, and it had wolf-like features as well. So I was thinking, oh wow, we're going to get to see the Vonskers, but no, I don't think that's them at all. Who knows though? So yeah, the scene leading up to Sabine finding Ezra, I did like getting to meet the Noti for the first time. Really interesting little species of alien there. And I like that Ezra has pretty much been doing what Ezra would be doing this whole time. He's been helping people. He has been looking out for the little guys. I know fans were thinking we might be seeing Ezra go dark. A lot of people wanted that. But I'm glad that it didn't happen that way. I feel like, as I've said in other videos, it's been done a lot in Star Wars. I mean, in the expanded universe timeline, you got Ulic Qel-Droma, you've got Jason Solo, you got Exar Kun going to the dark side, you've got so many others. I mean, Darth Revan, Darth Malak. There are quite a few stories to enjoy if you got a kink for good guys going bad. And of course, in canon, you got Kylo Ren. You got the poster boy for good guys going bad, Anakin Skywalker. I'm not opposed to seeing it done again if it fits the story. But I'm glad that Ezra somehow managed to evade Thrawn. And we see him here helping the Noti in the village. And I really like Eman Esfandi's portrayal of Ezra in live action. To me, it feels seamless, when you've got Sabine and Ezra reuniting after such a long time. It feels like we are finally getting to see this plot thread from Rebels. We finally get to see where it leads. And I think he does a great job portraying Ezra, and I can't wait to see what they do with him in future episodes of Ahsoka. I hope we get to see the Rebels crew uniting, after Ahsoka in live action. I'm sure we will. I mean, Dave's going to be making a movie. I wouldn't say no to some kind of live action Rebels stuff later on as well. I don't know what they're going to do. So those coffin-shaped containers that Thrawn's night troopers are toting aboard the ships. I wonder what they contain. I don't know if Thrawn's found some Sparti cloning cylinders in this distant galaxy. I don't know if he's going to unleash zombie Night Sisters in the Star Wars galaxy. Don't know what is in there. I didn't get a clear enough picture of those containers in the audio description. I'm not sure if they are human-sized containers or what. But yeah, interesting little bits and bobs of what we might be seeing in future episodes. And of course, Thrawn being Thrawn, he's letting Sabine go. He's letting her track down Ezra so he can eventually take them both out if he needs to. He just doesn't really have a use for them. And at the same time, he doesn't really have a use for Baylan and Shin. He is certainly trying to stay in the good graces of the Great Mothers, though. So, he needs their dark magic in order to do something or other. I'm sure we'll find that out in next week's episode or maybe the conclusion of Ahsoka. I love that Thrawn is teaming up with wielders of dark magic. In the Thrawn trilogy in the EU, he teamed up with Jorus Sabaoth, or Sabaoth, however you want to pronounce his name. And I like seeing him working with the Night Sisters here. We saw the Empire working with Night Sisters in the expanded universe, with Warlord Zinj working with them in Courtship of Princess Leia. So it's cool to see that kind of revisited here in Ahsoka. We've got Thrawn teaming up with Night Sisters. And I really hope that the Great Mothers might make it out of Peridia and into our galaxy. Of course, I'm sure Thrawn is going to... We're probably going to see him after Ahsoka. I don't know what to expect next week. I'm really looking forward to the last 2 episodes. I guess Ahsoka and Huyang are going to have a very nasty welcome planned for them. I'm wondering if we're going to see one Pergil biting the big one in the next episode. And if you do that, Thrawn, well, you're just being Thrawn. It's deliciously evil. Speaking of which, I wonder how Pergil might taste. Anyway, with that being said, I am done with this review. I give the episode a 10 out of 10. I was glad to finally see Ezra and Thrawn in live action. I think they really did a great job portraying Peridia. I liked seeing those bandits. We got that little action scene there, and I guess they're going to be helping Baylan and Shin in the next episodes. We'll probably be getting to see more action. I love the Noti, and can't wait to see a bit more of them. I kind of hope they take the Howler, Sabine's Howler, with them to the Star Wars galaxy so he can possibly play and nap with her Lothcat. She needs another pet there at her house on Lothal. Till next time, guys. May the Force be with you. And who knows what next week's going to bring.